It was the college football Saturday, my junior year of college at Vanderbilt University, upon which I very nearly had to call my mother and ask her for lots of money I don't think she had at that point. Today, as you well know, on Undisputed, I bet cases of Diet Mountain Dew against my frenemy, Shannon Sharp. But that's all I bet, just cases of Diet Dew, an occasional dinner here or there. None of this ever gets paid off. It's fun, but it's only fun. I'll get more into that in just a moment. But the point is that on October the 27th of 1973, I bet the last penny I ever bet on any kind of game, because that's when my short-lived, though very dangerous gambling career ended. I believe I was a very potential problem gambler, but it ended that day, thank God. This all started my first couple of years at Vanderbilt. I had a close friend back home in Oklahoma City who eventually became a bookmaker, who at that point knew a bookmaker in Oklahoma City. So when I was home from Vanderbilt, holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, I started betting on college football games through my friend to this bookmaker. And in those days, trust me on this, betting with a bookie, to me, was extremely illegal, and it almost felt like I was robbing a liquor store. At least in my head, that's what it felt like. But I found right away I was pretty good at picking winners against the point spread. I won far more than I lost, but I was betting extremely conservatively. And by the way, for the record, I was betting only my money. This was not Daddy's money because I didn't have any of Daddy's money. By that point, my father had left home, left my mother in a lurch as she fell deeper and deeper into the same bottle my father was drowning in. She had tried to take over the little barbecue joint, little hole-in-the-wall barbecue restaurant that they tried to run on the south side of Oklahoma City called the Hickory House, and it was failing. Sometimes we'd have a little bit of money, and sometimes we would have no money. Trust me, it came and it went. But I always worked for my money. I always worked at that Hickory House restaurant since I was 5 years old, every holiday, every summer. And then as I got deeper into high school and then into college, I worked every day of every summer. I work. It's what I was born to do. It's what I continue to do. I work. So I'm betting, remember, my money. The only way I was even able to attend Vanderbilt was that as I mentioned before, I won a national competition for what's called the Grantland Rice Scholarship. It is a complete full scholarship. It's room, it's board, it's tuition, it's books, it's everything for all 4 years. And whatever spending money I took with me to Nashville for the school year, I had made in the summertime. I'm not sure if my mother had any money at all. Not much, if any. So occasionally at Vanderbilt, I made a few bucks betting on football. But it wasn't until my junior year at school that I made friends with a guy who lived at the Phi Delta Theta house, Phi Delta house we called it, who was kind of a runner for a local Nashville bookmaker. So you could make bets through the guy at the Phi Delta house to this bookmaker, and then you could go collect your winnings from him, or he would collect your losses from you. So one Saturday, I got pretty full of myself, and I flat out plunged. I was on a little bit of a roll, and I bet $50 a game on 5 games. And trust me, at that point in my life, given my wherewithal, $50 was like betting $1,000 today on 5 games. And of course, you know what happened. I went 5 for 5, and I was the toast of Tower 1. That's where I lived, in a dorm room on the top floor, the 14th floor. I was the toast of the tower. I strutted my stuff. I gloated. My friends, my fraternity brothers, they all thought I was just some spread-busting wizard of a game picker and gambler. So that Monday, I picked up my winnings. And of course, I started to study the spreads, the game lines for the following Saturday's games. Obviously, because I was hot. I was, at that point in my head, invincible. I was a sports genius. On Friday, I called up my contact at the Phi Delta house, and I plunged. I bet $100 a game on 5 games. Way in over my head. And as fate would have it, I wrote columns for the school newspaper at Vanderbilt called The Hustler. And I was scheduled on Saturday, Friday night actually, to go down to Oxford, Mississippi to cover the Vanderbilt game, football game at Ole Miss. We were 14-point underdogs. And I looked at that spread and I said, that is my lock of the week. I cannot lose that game. My Commodores at home the previous Saturday had just beaten Georgia by 4. I think it was 18-14 to move all the way up to 4-2. And by the way, Ole Miss 2 weeks before had lost, albeit at Georgia, been shut out 20-0 by the Bulldogs. So I'm thinking, I got this. On Friday night, a close friend of mine, a fraternity brother, who also pitched for the Vanderbilt baseball team, named Jim Hibbett. We took his car. He had an old Corvette, and we drove from Nashville to Memphis. We stayed overnight in Memphis at a very cheap hotel or motel. And we drove on down the hour or so to Oxford on Saturday morning. So as fate would also have it, the other 4 games I bet on all concluded just as my game was scheduled to start later in the afternoon. So I knew pretty much my fate at that point. And of course, as you might have guessed, I lost all 4 of those bets. And of course, my Commodores trailed 24-0 heading into the 4th quarter in Oxford at old Hemingway Stadium. I had a press pass. I was sitting in the press box and I couldn't take it anymore. So I made my way all the way down to the field, walked onto the field, and I wound up standing, sometimes kneeling, just beyond the back line of the Vanderbilt end zone, watching my fate unfold before me, often staring down into the grass, thinking, what was my mother going to say when I called and asked for this money? Our quarterback that year was named Fred Fisher. He was a bit of an undersized overachiever from Nashville, but he was a Nashville high school legend at Montgomery Bell Academy. I knew Fred well, loved him, great guy, real battler on the football field, real competitor, and he was still fighting his tail off down 24-0, even against the Ole Miss backups. With 8 or so minutes left, he threw a touchdown pass, and it's 24-7. Got the ball back late in the game. Now I'm down on both knees, just beyond the back line of the end zone, watching Fred Fisher drive my Commodores up the field against the Ole Miss backups. I didn't say a prayer because I don't believe in praying for that. but I'm looking up to the football gods to please give me some kind of break here. And God bless Fred Fisher. With 1:05 left in the game, he had a tight end named Barry Burton with a strike right on the back line of the end zone, 13 yards for the 24-14 touchdown. I was petrified. I was horrified. My heart was in my throat. And when Barry Burton hung on and got both feet down in bounds, like 5 feet from me, I nearly collapsed. I have never in my life been more relieved watching any game I've ever watched than that game, that moment. Vanderbilt had covered. It was the all-time ultimate backdoor cover because they really had no business. The right way to bet that game was to bet Ole Miss. And I sat there thinking, I nearly just lost $550, including what they call the vigorish, the 10% that you owe the bookmaker. And even though I had won $250 the week before, losing $550, making me minus $300, my mom wouldn't have been able to fade that one. I don't know what I would have done. Maybe gotten a leg broken, an arm broken, a hand broke. I don't know what I would have done. So on that 4-hour drive back from Oxford to Nashville that evening, I was numb, I was shook. And all I could think about was, I'm never going to bet another nickel on another game. And to this day, I have not. I believe I was the classic potential problem gambler. Classic. I'm obsessive compulsive. I'm intensely proud. I'm insanely competitive. I was classic. I was in for it. And God was good. Because I soon segued into a profession that allowed me to scratch my gambling itch by betting my pride in newspaper columns and on radio and ultimately on national TV. I have made thousands of predictions, public predictions, just betting my pride, just opening myself up to potential shame and ridicule, which it can hurt almost as much as the money. But I had my outlet. I could bet my game-picking male ego against other male egos live on radio and then live on TV. And then it's Shannon Sharpe 6 years ago as we began Undisputed. First day out, September 6th, 2016. Shannon Sharpe says something like, hey, you like Diet Mountain Dew. I do. It's my one vice. I admit it. So he says, you like Diet Mountain Dew. I'll bet you a case of Diet Dew that, and I can't remember what the bet was, ... but here we went. Diet Dew became our currency on Undisputed, so much to the point that my friend Nellie once asked me if a case, quote unquote, was actually code for like, say, $1,000, like $1,000. He'd say, you guys, if you bet 5 cases, is that like $5,000 on a game? No, it's just Dew. That's all it is. I beat Shannon Sharpe so badly that first year that by my birthday on December 4th, he had to wheel out an entire cart filled with Diet Dew to pay me off. Obviously, the company bought that Dew for him, but that's a whole nother story. We've started over on our Dew bets a couple of times, and I believe at this moment I'm up like 70 cases. I also, as you might remember, I won a $500 bet with our man Eric Dickerson, the Rambassador, over the Super Bowl. Eric has offered to take me to dinner in Beverly Hills. That would cover it. We haven't been able to click in sync schedules just yet, but we will. But the point is, I'm really good at picking games against the line. I am. I might be even better at negotiating bets with Shannon Sharp. Maybe that's about half the battle on Undisputed. But I'm here to tell you, I have never known anybody who could consistently make big money betting football or basketball games. If they tell you they do, they are lying to you, because I just know it's just too hard. It's too unpredictably crazy. There are too many bizarre bounces. You know this, and I know this. As good as I think I am at this, there's no way I could make a living if I moved to Vegas. I just couldn't. I'd get too caught up in this and that. I'd get on a roll, then I'd slump. I'd become a problem gambler. I believe I learned a life-saving lesson that long ago day in, of all places, Oxford, Mississippi. I hope you enjoyed that video. You ready for more? Make sure you click that subscribe button for all the exclusive content from the Skip Bayless Show. And don't forget to check out the full episode of the show wherever you get your podcasts by clicking the link in the description.